Awesome. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. Thank you all for joining us tonight for our special council meeting for March 28th, 2022. This is a special meeting of the Council of the Township of Montclair and is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live on the Montclair TV 34 YouTube channel. It is available on demand and will be rebroadcast. This special meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice of the meeting has been provided, transmitted to the official newspapers on March 25th, 2022, posted on the bulletin boards outside the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted. In addition, a copy of the special meeting notice has been and is available to the clerk, to the public, and is on file in the office of the Township of the Clerk. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Love to allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, and justice for all.
And justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Cummings,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock,
Present.
Councilor Price Abrams,
Present.
Councilor Russo,
Present.
Councilor Schlager,
Here.
Councilor Yacobelis,
Present.
Mayor Spiller.
Present. Thank you. Next, we'll adopt the agenda with flexibility without objection. Thank you. Next is public comment. In an effort to minimize exposure to COVID-19 and to maintain social distancing practices, this March 28, 2022 council meeting and further meetings until the pandemic is over will only be available to the public remotely. Those who wish to participate now during public comment should dial in to 408-418-9388. When asked to enter an access code, please enter 2340799-6239 and then press pound. When asked to enter an attendee number, please simply press pound. When asked to state your name, please do so and press pound. The administrator will say when it's the caller's turn to speak, and the caller will then hear 2 beeps. At that time, the caller will have an opportunity to make his or her comments. With that, Mr. Fan, Mr. Stafford, I turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, sir. Caller with the number starting at 973-820. It is your turn to comment. 973-820, please, for the record, state your name, keep your comments to 3 minutes, and mute your listening device.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Tony Martin with the Tenants Organization of Montclair. I want to speak tonight about rent control, which I believe is the only thing before you. From the start, this was a citizen-led action, a seat of the pants, slingshot Sally against the Goliath of regional real estate. Those of us who gathered at a community forum on rent control 3 years ago at Bullock School were mostly novices in the world of rent control. We were mostly just frustrated tenants with no background in tenant law or even community activism. At that forum, I did meet some veterans. William Scott, 40 years in the fight for affordable housing. Deirdre Malloy, a brilliant younger leader who helped plan the forum that spring. And I heard from and about Mitch Kahn, who helped organize and write rent control ordinances in more than 100 New Jersey communities, along with his attorney ally, Joan Pransky. I listened to former councilwoman Renee Baskerville outline how previous campaigns in Montclair had been launched, fought, lost, and still a large part of our community kept eyes on that prize. She and others talked of how rising affluence was severely diminishing our local diversity. Many folks simply couldn't afford to live here anymore. Ms. Ahava Felicidad, someone I didn't know, stood up to say she wanted to form a citizens group for rent control. I rushed right over to see what I could do to help. Over the next 3 years, hundreds and hundreds of community members did the same. You know their names because they came here to speak to you. They wrote to you, called you, commanded your attention in every possible way because the problem of rising rents and lack of tenant rights was so urgent and always growing more so. Tonight we have a solution, and we have citizens to thank. We thank every council member who voted with us over and over again during this battle, even when the MPOA kept trying to bludgeon you with the threat of big legal fees and nonstop court action. but I feel compelled to add a special word of deep gratitude to Mayor Sean Spiller. Mr. Mayor, you and Councilor Russo have probably taken the brunt of the vilification of this town council for standing with tenants wanting a reasonable rent control ordinance. You have been called every name in the book by the MPOA's champion spitballer, Ron Simoncini. And then, at the very end of negotiations, aimed at avoiding a costly referendum vote, a couple of your council colleagues decided that they would need to take it out of the tenants' hands in order to get a real agreement with the landlords. You stood fast and trusted us to get it done.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes have expired. Please conclude your comments.
Okay. You gave us those seats at the bargaining table, and you didn't pull them out from under us, and you did not step up and attempt to take all credit for the fruits of our difficult work. This was a citizen action, and you supported that all the way to the end. Thank you all.
Next would be caller with the number starting 201575. It is your turn to comment. 201575.
Yes.
Please state your name for the record, mute your listening device, and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Yes, this is Mitch Kahn. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is Mitch Kahn, New Jersey Tenants Organization. I've been involved in tenant organizing and rent control campaigns for more than 50 years, and spent a good deal of time during the last 3 years in Montclair. I think most of you know me by now and must be tired of hearing from me. I would just like to thank those of you who are crucial in helping the Montclair tenant and housing advocacy organizations in Montclair to bring this fight to a successful conclusion. First, as Tony Martin just said, I would like to thank Mayor Sean Spiller, who brought the contending parties together in December with the aim of negotiating a mutually agreed upon ordinance. He had agreed with the tenant advocates that we should carry out the negotiations without council interference. He had complete faith that we could do the job, and he held that position to the very, very end of negotiations. And to that, we are very appreciative. I would also like to thank 3 council people who went above and beyond in giving us steadfast support for our cause. Councilman Cummings, Councilwoman Abrams, and Councilwoman Russo responded to every single one of our calls, and more than just listened to us. They more than just listened to us. Each of them consistently voted for the rent freeze, which protected tenants during this crisis period, and they also voted to sustain the original rent control ordinance, which started the clock moving towards a final resolution. And this was vital in bringing a final settlement. So Sean, David, Lori, and Bob, I want to thank you for your faith in us with the belief that we had the skills to do it, that we were entitled to do it without council interference, and to acknowledge that the folks who most deserve credit for this accomplishment are Montclair activists, Ahava Felicidad, Tony Martin, William Scott, Deidre Malloy, the late Al Pelham, and Joan Fransky, who provided countless hours of her expert legal advice in helping to craft the ordinance you are introducing tonight. Thank you.
Next will be caller with the number starting 201424. It is your turn to comment. 201424, please, for the record, state your name, keep your comments to 3 minutes, and do us the service of muting your listening device.
This is Ron Simoncini from the Montclair Property Owners Association. The previous 2 callers did a phenomenal job of introducing me, so I won't give myself any titles. I think while I disagree with both the tone and some of the factual statements that were recently made here, I do want to commend the members of the council who I worked with over the last couple of weeks to make sure that there was a sense of council involvement in these discussions, which I do credit the mayor with setting up a circumstance that forced these parties to come to an agreement. I also think that the folks that we talked to, and I unlike Mr. Khan and Ms. Martin, I wasn't able to engage with much of the council, but Councilman, Deputy Mayor Herlock and Councilman Yacovellis both were people who solicited reaction from us based on what they had heard from the other side, and we were able to provide some insight there. And I think that the fact that there were more voices involved was very helpful. Although I must say that, you know, in the final steps on this, when the mayor was involved and got involved on a couple of different levels, it allowed us to agree. So I appreciate the input of all three of those people. I don't think that this deal gets done without the dynamics that occurred. And, you know, I'm sure that the credit that the tenants have given to the other council members is warranted as well. From our point of view, this rent control ordinance in its precepts is livable. It will do the least amount of damage to property values and homeowner interests that we've seen through this dialogue. And that's a good thing. That's a healing thing. That's a thing that will create the least amount of division as we go forward. The implementation of the law is a very separate matter. And the devil is certainly in the details as those standards are set and the regulatory regime is established. And we'll be here for that. We've got a lot of experience in that. I don't think there are more than 100 rent control ordinances in New Jersey. I congratulate Mitch on negotiating more than 100 when there aren't 100. I've been involved in a few of these myself, and I think that we've got some positive ideas to keep this efficient, keep it fair, and make it so there's the least amount of division possible as we go forward. We're not going to use any rhetoric around that. We just want this to be practical. We're relieved that it's over. We think the solution that we came to is equitable for both sides. And the entire time we've been here, we've been saying that we do think that our long-term tenants needed this protection.
Sir, the time for your comments has concluded. Please conclude your comments. Thank you.
And we wanted to provide this protection for them, and they now have this protection, and that's where the real win is. And so appreciate everybody who was involved in that. Thank you very much.
Next would be caller with the number starting 973-747. It is your turn to comment. 973-747, please. For the record, state your name, mute your listening device, and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Yes, this is William Scott from the Montclair NAACP. I would first like to inform the council and members of the public. The Montclair branch NAACP will be making a full statement shortly in regards to the process and involvement of all parties in the negotiation of the rent control ordinance. That is coming from President Roger Terry. Myself, as chair of the Montclair Housing Committee, it has been my pleasure to participate alongside the Tenants Organization of Montclair, the Landlord Tenant Advisory Committee, the Montclair Housing Commission, and the New Jersey Tenants Organization in the negotiation to achieve a mutual agreed rent control ordinance for the Township of Montclair. It has been a long, hard effort to get us here, and it is important that all information about the new ordinance is clear and accurate. I've heard some residents wrongly claim that small landlords played no role in the process, that the ordinance covers all 2- and 3-family buildings. These claims are not true. I am a small landlord in the Township of Montclair. I have been at the negotiating table from the beginning to the end of the situation. I am proud that my small building will be covered by the new rent control ordinance and that I can play my part in protecting Montclair tenants. The ordinance does not cover all 2- and 3-family buildings. Owner-occupied 2-family buildings are excluded. In addition to my participation as a small landlord on the tenant advocacy team, we had tenants, senior tenants, a homeowner, a project manager for large and small buildings, a tenant organizer and negotiator with 50 years experience, a legal expert on rent control who drafted ordinances and have defended constitutionally these ordinances in courts in the state of New Jersey. In addition, the ordinance does allow a one-time 6% increase for landlords who honored the rent freeze and did not collect rents, increasing their tenants' occupancy on May 1st, 2020, the freeze date, followed by a 4% thereafter. But this does not apply to seniors 65 years and older who can only be increased their rent by 2.5%. For landlords who ignored the rent freeze and passed along rent increases to their tenants in occupancy on May 1, 2020, including their senior citizens 65 plus, their rents must first
Sir,
be
the time
rolled
for your
back
comments
to
has expired. Please conclude your comments. Thank you.
Will do so. The will be rolled back to the May 2020 level, making sure to eliminate the wrongful increases and reset the rents before the 4% and 2.5% can be passed along. Landlords must also comply with new regulations according to state laws within 30 days. There is much more to this ordinance, and we intend to hold tenant education workshops to inform the tenants of their rights. But until now, congratulations to Montclair citizens for caring about one another and our unique, diverse community. Montclair Affordable Housing Advocates stand on the shoulders of the Montclair Rent Regulation Group and the Montclair Tenants Organization. Also, my thanks to Mayor Spiller for bringing the parties back to the table. We did not fail. We completed the project. Thank you all.
Next would be caller with the number starting 973454. It is your turn to comment. 973454. Please, for the record, state your name. Keep your comments to 3 minutes and mute your listening device. Nine seven three four five four. Are you with us? We will move on to 434409. It is your turn to comment. 434409. Please, for the record, state your name. Keep your comments to 3 minutes and mute your listening device.
Yep, Eric Brahms here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep, I'm a property owner, resident Montclair, 238 Park Street. First of all, from what I've seen, the township hasn't posted the resolution, so I'm not sure how you're going to vote on a resolution that hasn't been posted or reviewed, or you're going to have public comment or intelligent discourse about a resolution that hasn't been posted or reviewed by anybody. Second off, what's happened to the 2- and 3-family owner property owners is egregious. They've had a deal negotiated on their part by essentially a dark group with no representation or little to no representation. Montclair Property Owners Association, when you go to their website, does not show who the members of this Property Owners Association are or what representation they represent. It's absolutely absurd. The 2- and 3-family owners are the mom and pops in Montclair. They're the small owners. They don't have deep pockets. They invested in these properties because they saw them as a great investment for the future. They believed in the town. Now what you're doing is affecting their ability to adjust rents as they see fit. These aren't the people that have raised rents tremendously. These are the people that know their tenants personally, that raise rents nominally, small amounts to keep them in the buildings. What you've done to these people is absolutely absurd. You've destroyed their property value, and you've affected their ability to effectively manage their buildings. I don't know how you guys can pass this with a good conscience, especially when they didn't have a seat at the bargaining table. I think you've got to vote this resolution down without question and give these property owners a chance for their say. We don't have the deep pockets that some of these large investors have where they can shell out $1 million. But I tell you, you can look at $1 million two ways, either as a lump sum or 100 million pennies. Us property owners will be able to get together 100 million pennies. I can promise you we'll fight this. That's all I have to say.
Excuse me, before we continue, Mayor or Mr. Attorney, I wonder if we could we clarify for the public that in fact, I believe the matter before us really has to do with our review of the settlement agreement before us and not an introduction of this ordinance tonight. I think that is potentially a subject of some confusion.
Ms. Price Abrams, that's correct. We're here to go into executive session after public comment and discuss the settlement and approve that. And the ordinance is only on for discussion only, but not for introduction or first read, unless the council chooses otherwise.
Can we clarify if the ordinance was posted? Or published anywhere for anyone to read it?
I will defer to the township clerk, but I do not believe it was posted.
Mayor, may I address Councilor Schlager?
Please, Madam Clerk.
Councilor Schlager, the proposed ordinance was not posted on our website. It's a discussion item, so those items are deliberative. They're never posted on the website.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next would be caller with the number starting 973744. It is your turn to comment. 973744. Please, for the record, state your name, mute your listening device, and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Mute your listening device.
Hi.
Keep your comments to 3 minutes.
This is Karma Lockman. I think that I'm up now. Okay, so I did get a copy of the ordinance, and I wanted to comment on some of that. The ordinance is clearly written as if we were a large corporate or institutional investors and tenants. It is not written for the small 2- and 3-family homeowners. And I would agree too. These homeowners had no representation in the negotiations of this ordinance, or very little. Certainly there was no transparency as to what was going on, so that even as the discussions were taking place, small property owners could have commented. I also believe, looking at the findings, the first paragraph in the ordinance, I don't know, to my knowledge, the council did no analysis, no research, no investigating on why this ordinance was necessary. It was anecdotal information they received from the tomb people, whom I greatly admire for their grassroots ability to get people behind them. Looking through the ordinance, I see and I wonder why single-family homes, single condominium units, and single cooperative units are not covered under this. I note that furnished rooms are covered under this ordinance. I also note that there's a huge bureaucracy behind this. And looking at, for example, there's page substantial code compliance. So are 2- and 3-family units now subject to inspection and regulation? Do we really, how's that going to work? How's the town going to fund people who are going to be inspecting these units? I see that the powers of the board include examination of my books, records, and tax returns. Am I really going to show the town tax returns and my records of this sort? We have registration statements that include this type of information that are supposedly available to the public. Do I want the public looking at what rents I'm getting, looking at what my tenants are paying? I believe that's not information that should be available to the public forum. I see that there's going to be an escrow account demanded of anybody who's questioning the rent control amounts that are shown. And small landlords will have to pay into an escrow account for the services of a professional. Is that really fair? That sounds like that's something that would apply to a large landlord. And many people, small landlords, may not have the funds to go into an escrow account to pay for professional services. I see that tenants are able to get a spokesperson, but landlords are not. Am I able, to be a spokesperson for small 2 and 3 family owners? No. I think that some of this stuff
Ma'am,
is
the time for your
unenforceable.
comment has
basically.
expired.
Right.
Please
You gave
conclude your
other
comments.
people a lot more
Thank you.
time, so I just would like to finish up what I have to say. I see that there's a volunteer board that are supposed to be looking at the actual life expectancy of improvements, the proposed actual life recommendation and calculation of amortization, what final determination shall be made by the rent control board. How are volunteers supposed to be able to do this? The actual life expectancy of, I said this, of home improvements. I mean, this is kind of ridiculous. And also the total bureaucracy that'll be necessary to administer this is a little insane. The utilities, we can't raise our we can't charge back the utilities to tenants during the term of their tenancy. Even if those utilities go up, my sewer, my water, my taxes, my whatever, they could be going up during the term of the tenancy. How can I can't pass those back? But there's just so much in here that is geared towards a large landowner, large investor, not towards small homeowners, small investors. And also, I'm supposed to be paying the town for my filing of fees, and I have to pay them for the annual registration statement. That seems a little outrageous. So I think, this really needs to be rethought. I think you're all talking as if this was a done deal. Well, I certainly hope that you're going to have public comment, listen to public comment. And I would think that with all the additional cost to manage this program, that you'd be better off just having a fund to help needy tenants, not tenants who can pay their rents, but needy tenants to help them with their rents rather than the incredible bureaucracy that's going to be put in place to manage this. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Mr. Mayor, Manager, can I say something, please?
Councilman Russo.
Yeah, I would like to directly answer Carmel, good member of our planning board who knows a lot about government, I think, member of the League of Women Voters. Carmel, I have in front of me the Neptune Township Rent Leveling Board, group of volunteers, yes, but also they have an attorney and they have a secretary who works with them. All of this is paid for within the Township of Neptune. It has all the instructions for people. It's a wonderful booklet. I've had this for years because I go down there a lot. It's not a big bureaucracy. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It has solved all the problems that that nice town of about 26,000 people with a similar diversity to Montclair has had with tenants in its borders. It's something that many towns have done surrounding us. They have rent leveling or rent control boards, volunteers, yes, some staffing, paid for by fees that may not be onerous. It's not a big bureaucracy, Carmel. That's number one. Number two, it's done all over. There are towns like ours that have had rent control for years, and they have no problems coming to the council every other week with individual tenants appealing for help. Yes, you said maybe we should have a pot of money. Well, that's not the way the government should work. We are putting in a regulation that is reasonable. It's a 4% increase, and what I'm happy about is that there's still 2.5% for seniors who I represent here as a 74-year-old senior. I just do not see why you say this is so ridiculous. We're not voting on the ordinance tonight, as we understand. We're voting on the settlement that was reached. I didn't have a lot to do with that, but I am supportive of rent control and supportive of settling this rather than having another referendum, which we would have gone to in May, costing us $70,000 just to run that referendum. So people who think about suing us again, think about the cost to taxpayers of another referendum. But Ms. Longman, I'd be happy to talk to you about this. I have a lot of experience with it, and I'm giving you an example of a town where it's been very successful in Monmouth County. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, can I comment?
I see Councilman Jacobells.
Thank you. I do just want to call out a couple aspects of the law as well. One, it does not impact you if you live in the home where you have rental units, if it's owner occupied, and it's 2 or 3 family. It's not covered by this. And for property owners, there are several opportunities for relief from the caps. 1 is vacancy decontrol, 2 is hardship increases, 3 is for major capital improvements, and 4 is for major additional services. So there's a whole lot of recourse in the law for any landlord who feels like they're not getting the rent that they need to or can afford to charge based on utilities, based on taxation, based on improvements that need to be made. I think all of that was extensively thought through and deliberated by stakeholders. I just wanted to comment. Thank you.
Mayor, there are no other callers in the queue who have not spoken.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Stafford. I appreciate that. With that, I will close public comment. All right, thank you very much. Next, we see our next item, which is ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance 020-05, which is establishing rent control in the Township of Montclair. That's a discussion item. Of course, to the agenda with flexibility, and it may be more advantageous for us to discuss in executive session some of the items around a settlement agreement, which can further our discussion around the discussion item. So with that, I'm going to move Resolution R22-059, which is a resolution authorizing executive session without the public being permitted to attend in accordance with N.J.S.A 10:4-12B, and the subject is litigation. Mr. Burr, I don't want there to be any confusion. Instead, I've heard a lot of people frame it in a few different ways here. So legally, can you note the process of we're going to discuss my items in executive session. It relates to a settlement agreement. That settlement agreement may or may not have components that are contingent upon a new ordinance being introduced eventually at some point, including up to and including tonight, which is the process of an introduction, then posted for the public to review, give comment, feedback, have a public comment section, a public hearing, and then action by council. Mr. Burr, is that correct? I want to put all options that are there, so there's no what happens here or there. Please give us the legal breakdown, and then we'll move into executive session with a vote. Mr. Burr.
Mr. Mayor, yes. What we will be doing is discussing settlement of the litigation from the petitioners that are seeking a referendum. We've resolved those issues so that the town doesn't have to be burdened with costly litigation. A component of that settlement revolves around the compromise ordinance that was reached between the parties, but the significant part relates to dismissing all pertinent litigation against the town by those petitioners. We will go into closed session, Mr. Mayor, as you're aware, to discuss those matters, because those are matters that are confidential pertaining to litigation. Once we are done discussing, we'll come back out into open public meeting, and the council will either take a vote to approve the settlement at that time. Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I so move the resolution.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, we'll now move into executive session. Mr. Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you very much, everybody. We are now out of executive session. And with that, I would like to move Resolution R2260, which is a resolution approving the settlement and release agreement between the Committee of Petitioners and Township Property Owners and the Township of Montclair, Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair, and the Clerk of the Township of Montclair, and I so move.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, or comments?
Oh, one quick question, Mayor.
Please.
Just when will the agreement be made public?
Believe Mr. Burr, you can answer that, but I believe those happen as soon as they're executed. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
All right. See no others, Madam Clerk, please.
Counselor Cummings,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock,
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams,
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Being that this agreement still includes 2.5% for seniors, yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacovelis,
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. And certainly, as was noted in the calls before, we now have an ordinance which we will post and add for the next meeting and move forward from there. I do appreciate my colleagues for jumping on, and the public and others for this a special session to work to approve the settlement agreement and bring us to this place. Certainly, we all know that there is never perfect. We know, and as they always say, the enemy of the good is the perfect. But that said, getting us to this place, we have not officially introduced the new ordinance and other pieces, but I think the framework of exactly what that will look like is there because of the hard work of so many individuals, including my colleagues that are on here today. I know I'm mindful of the time. So we're going to cut this one short. And of course, we've got a meeting coming up in short order that we will all speak to, I'm sure, as we introduce hopefully an ordinance and go from there. But I wanted to say again, to everyone who called in, and I think many of the participants in this process did call in today, a big thank you for engaging in something. As someone who's often negotiated pieces, no, it's not fun at all times. It's often very challenging. It gets contentious. It gets what feels like personal, but at the end of the day, it's a sign of professionals who can come together, put the interests of the public at large ahead of maybe an individual piece or component, find agreement as opposed to division, get to a place where we can say yes to historic rent control that both protects our diversity and affordability and also manage that against the ability of individuals to continue to move forward renting properties and having their needs met as well. So again, to all involved, a big thank you. We've taken one step closer here. We've got a meeting coming up in short order where we'll discuss further. We have that ordinance, which will be there and people can review and we move forward on. And certainly, again, to all my colleagues for the great work that's been done throughout this process. It's been, a long process, lots of twists and turns, but certainly to hold the line, to move forward with the vision of the commitment that we've had, starting in the previous council, and then so many holding the line in this one and getting us to where we need to be, I think has made a real difference. So thank you to all. Appreciate it. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night. Congratulations.
Night all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.